This has serious implications for the San Diego Padres. We got to talk about the latest comments from Mike Shildt and what that means about the San Diego Padres pitching staff. What's going on, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of Padres Digest. Thank you very much to the show where I, a random dude on the internet, opine, whine, under and overreact about all things Padres. If you could hit the subscribe button, it would be much appreciated. It's just my YouTube thing. I got to ask. If not, no worries. Let's go back to talking about baseball, and let's communally all sigh, get the negative vibes out, and let's talk about the implications. So Mike Shildt was always asked about a lot of Padres things, and he's a pretty he's not a Tony La Russa grump curmudgeon. He's not the most open honest guy, but he's a pretty accessible talker of Padres information and activities to reporters. So talking about recently, the main thing the Padres have been doing is losing. But other than that, the main thing the Padres have been doing is not sustaining the pitching staff that they really hope to have going into the season. Darvish, Michael King, two of the main ones on that injured list. Here is the latest from them. Let's talk about the specifics of each player and then also the implications that has for the Padres. Darvish is going to throw a simulated game that is likely, as of him posting this tomorrow, that is as of today. I was recording this on Saturday. And then as for King, until he can pick up a baseball and throw it consistently, there really is no planning. So let's go first, last there. Let's start with Michael King. I would assume that it's safe to say that no longer means his position on the 14-day IL is a indication of this being a 2-week injury. They have never come out directly and said that, it's a labrum, it's a scapula, it's a this, it's a that, it's a tear grade 2, that has X, Y. It's always just been, it started out as, he woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and then it evolved into shoulder soreness, shoulder weakness, shoulder tenderness, shoulder-ishness. I don't need to waste anybody's time WebMDing it, but this is obviously a bigger issue than we have initially been led to hope for, to believe for. Here is more specifically the quote that was mentioned, that was brought up. This was brought up in a Kevin Acee article, but this is also just what he said in the dugout that day, that I wish we could decide on a next step for Michael. Right now, it's just rest. It's just a matter of how he heals and how this thing works out until he can pick up a baseball and throw it consistently. There's really no planning. Incredibly frustrating. I think sometimes you just want answers. And for the Padres to come out and say, he's done for the year. It's going to be a complete shoulder reconstruct. He had to have his shoulder amputated, and he's going to be bionic. We had to send him to Germany for blood transfusions or to the moon to get lunar rock. If we had some idea as what was going on, I think that the rest of the dominoes start to fall a little bit better into place of that means we need to then talk about pitching, or that means we need to talk about abandoning the season, or that means we need to talk about for 2 weeks he's going to be down. Having this just ambiguous thing is, I get that there are some of you that are going to jump in the comment section, and as always, let's keep the dialogue going together. Some of you are going to jump in and say, well, I'm glad it's not a tear. I'm glad he's coming back this season. But at what point does waiting for Michael King to come back end up being a detriment? Even if he does come back, the not making a definitive move to replace his spot on the pitching rotation. Perhaps not in a 1-to-1 ratio, but in something more than just we're going to have Kyle Hart and a cavalcade of nobodies coming up from the mine. Not that the Padres have tons and tons and tons of assets, and we've got a bunch of other trade videos going on, but they have a couple of identifiable issues. We need a left fielder. We need a catcher/DH thing. If we add pitching to that list, it changes the formula on how you approach all of those. There are deals out there potentially to be had where we can take players off and on. And they're just doing the math for all that versus being we need a left fielder, and then Michael King will probably come back later. But then we go get the left fielder, spend all of our ammo on that, and then wind up just a pitcher short. And even if we get Jarren Duran, even if we fix the offense, we could play ourselves out of a playoff run. I'm not saying out of a playoff first, but out of a deep run because we don't have that singular pitching top in sort of thing figured out. Or on the flip side of that, if it is time, and this is not something that I'm endorsing, I'm not an alarmist. I know that some of you say this, but it might be time if really. I thought this was kind of a funny quote. This is from Grok, the AI on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Just it's that first sentence there. The Padres face a pitching crisis in 2025, and I think that's funny that an AI summarizing an article says that they face a crisis because the Padres are in that. But if that crisis ends up being not overcomable, then I think that you got to talk about the Padres saying, hey, look, if we have no pitching, do we want to hold on to maybe this changes the maybe King having a shoulder injury that lasts all season changes the conversation on Cease. Do we need to hold on to Cease longer term now and make him the target of our offseason acquisitions over King? Do we go the flip side? And if this is a crisis, do we handle the crisis by saying, hey, we don't have the assets to pick up a left fielder or a catcher or anything like that, so let's roll the dice on the offense. Let's head into the postseason. We lose in the DS, but we also let's deal Cease. Let's deal guys, and let's build up some of those assets so that in 26 we come. I'm just saying, like, the implications are starting to be bigger and bigger the longer that Michael King is on the shelf. Over to the Darvish side of things. Darvish, here they talk about him going to throw a simulated game on Saturday. That's today as of us recording this video. In Peoria means it's very much control. Like, it's our own players. It's an internal thing. We have seen him so far this season come out and play a minor league rehab start that he looked good in, but the response from Darvish was that he did not feel like he could sustain it. He felt like maybe he has good stuff right now, but that he couldn't go out and do good stuff consistently and perpetually for the stretch run or the playoffs or the whole season or whatever you wanted to call it. So he geared up to that rehab start, dialed it way back, and now is back to this. So I'm here for cautious optimism. I'm okay with cautious optimism. I think that at this point we've kind of come to terms, whether or not anybody really wants to be out there saying it, that just any Darvish we get back this season is an icing on the cake, a cherry on top kind of thing, and is something that we should all just be like, okay, cool. Like, we got 3 or 4 starts out of him. We had him for the playoffs. He wasn't his best, but hey, it was always good to get an arm back. But we'll face what comes next after this. We'll see when he's healthy. When can he pick up a ball? Like, just seeing all of those, it makes me a little worried. These numbers that jump up here for you guys are, this is overall MLB pitching staff, starting pitchers ranked by ERA. You see Padres kind of middle of the road there, depending on what stat you go with, be it home runs or ERA or strikeouts or walks or anything that you want to think of that's not too deep into the advanced metrics weeds, just kind of that main beginner level of stats. The Padres end up breaking out to be somewhere between 12th and 20th on all of the different things. So, like, good. Yeah. They're this. They're a Jackson Merrill shoulder shrug. They're okay. We're okay. I am not trying to be Grok and say that we are in a pitching crisis, but the nebulous gray zone that we are hearing from our manager right now about our guys kind of has me a little bit worried that the implications are no longer just that we have injured stars, but we have guys who I am curious if we can even count on this season. And again, I'm not saying that anti them. I'm not saying this. I'm trying to have the adult conversation, as adult as one can get when opining and whining from their home office on a YouTube show about baseball while wearing a shirt from the Sandlot. So I get that this is all just fun and games, but drop a comment to let me know where your stress level is after hearing this, because I'm starting to, like I said, I hadn't considered liquidate. I hadn't considered that this might be an injury that King hurts his long-term value. Like, we saw, this is a complete sort of parallel non sequitur, but we saw Drew Brees have a shoulder injury end a season and go on to still be great, but the perceived value was just like, oh, is he right or wrong? Like is this going to muddy the waters in an off? Like, what are the implications going on beyond this? I think that they are starting to grow bigger and bigger as the Padres look at what they have, which is a really good core, but not an elite team. And they got to figure out how to bridge that gap and make some decisions based off of that. And again, I get that not every decision with Peter Seidler gone can be $400 million for him, $250 million for him, $86 million for him. Some of these have to be a little bit more managerial, sort of, we're gonna do all this together type of decisions. So I am not here just saying let's spend money, let's fix. I hear him here saying like I'm open to options. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But the bulk of it is that the latest injury update that we have is bad. Not that it's worse, it's just bad. So that's where we're at. Let me know what you think. If you could hit the subscribe button, like I said, it would be much appreciated. But until then, we'll talk to you guys soon.